Welcome to this video. We're going to show you how to create a little rainbow animation using two technologies which are easy to use, HTML and CSS. You don't need any fancy software for this. You just need access to a web browser, Chrome, Firefox, Internet Explorer, Safari, whatever you've got at home there, it will work with this. So what we're going to create. I'll just refresh this so you can see it run. Richard of York, no battle in vain. So there are the colours of our rainbow with a nice little animation. So I'm going to show you how we can put that together. So what you will need is you are going to say need a web browser, and we're going to be using something called CodePen. So I'll dive in with some of these in a second. This address here is where you can build your application. So you would need to copy that. So you could pause at this point if you want, but you need to put that address into a web browser. So I'll pause for a second, give you a chance to do that. And what you should have, see if I paste that in. So you cut and paste that address. So it's this one ending in QX, this one here. And if you put that into a browser and go to that address, you'll end up at this thing here called CodePen. Now, CodePen is an online tool that allows you to play with various technologies. It uses the three main technologies of web design. So we have HTML for structure, CSS for cascading style sheets for presentation, and something called JavaScript. We're only going to need these two, the HTML, which is the hypertext markup language, and the CSS. You don't really need to know anything about these two languages to follow through on this. It's just a bit of fun, but if you do, you might learn some new HTML and CSS tricks. As you add stuff in, there's nowhere to save it. It will automatically save as you go along, and you'll see your updated view at the bottom here. If you did want to save your work so you could come back to it later on, you would have to click on fork down here at the bottom, and you would need an account. So you would need to set up a CodePen account, but you can do all of this without setting up an account. If you just follow through in one session, it will create the effect so you can see it working, but you would need an account if you just want to save it. Okay, right, so first thing that we're going to do is just have a little look at how we're going to set up our initial rainbow. So obviously we want our rainbow to look like this. So we just need to do a little bit of planning, a little bit of thinking before we delve into working with this. So what we're basically going to have is we're going to have 7 elements that make up the red, orange, yellow, the Richard of York gave battle in vain, different blocks of colour there. There's going to be 7 of those, and each one of those is going to be 50 pixels wide. So each of these strips here will be 50 pixels wide. Pixels is the main unit we use in web design for measuring things. And then we're going to have a white centre arc in the middle of the rainbow there. That's going to be 200 pixels wide. So there'll be 7 bands of colour, 200 pixels of white space in the middle. So that would mean, if we did the maths on that, that the height of our rainbow here is going to be 450 pixels, because that's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. 7 times 50, 350, plus 100 of the height of the white there. And then width wise it's going to be double that, so the midpoint is going to be 450, and then the whole thing is going to be 900 wide. Okay, so those are the units we need to bear in mind as we build our application. So what you've got inside of here is the page has, in terms of HTML, it's been divided up into red, orange, yellow, green, blue, indigo, violet, and the middle bit, that's the white blob in the middle. So these are in HTML what we call logical divisions, and the page has already been divided up into those. So that's done for you. And these classes and IDs, we'll come to those in a second. These are how we're going to tie up some styling information we place in this CSS block here, how we're going to apply those to these different elements. So let's start off with adding the red one first of all, shall we? So what we'll do is we've got red here, so it's got an ID. So if we want to style that, what we do is we use a hash, and then we've got red, and then we can use curly brackets to put a values in, so we can write properties inside of this space. So the first thing I guess would be to give it a colour. So we're going to give it a back. If you type in here, you'll see it will help you as you do this. So we type in background dash colour. Notice colour is spelt wrong. Colon and red. It's using the American International English styling of colour. And so we've got a semicolon at the end of the line there. So we've got background colour as the property, as it's known, colon red. Now, you're not seeing anything red appear down here yet, because what we need to do next is to give this some width. And just for starters, let's say give this 500 pixels. And if I move this up, we still can't see anything appear down here, because we also need to give it a height. And again, just to get us going, let's give it 500 pixels. And there we can see we've got a red block now appearing in that, the preview underneath. Now what we wanted to do actually here is we're going to add our our orange block next. So underneath this we'll do a similar kind of thing. In fact, if you want to, you can copy it to help you, but I'll type it in. So we'll say hash orange, and then we'll say background colour and set that to be orange. There are other ways you can write the colours in, but we can, with these simple colours for the rainbow, we can just type the names in. And then let's give this a width of, let's say 400 pixels and a height of 400. We're going to change these values in a second. Right, so, and that appears down there. So it doesn't appear on top of it. So we do need to tweak things a little bit to get these two to sit on top of each other. So the way that we're going to do that is by using this thing here. So we've got something called playground. Now this in HTML jargon is the parent. All of these are inside it. So I've already created that for you. So what we can do is we can create something up here called a rule. We can say dot playground. The dot, and we have to open a curly brace, close the curly brace. And the dot indicates that it references this thing here, this class. So that's called playground, that's going to reference this. All of these, which we're going to build up, are inside of this playground here, which will make it easier for us to work with. Now, I'll give this a width again and a height like we did before, but I'm going to start generating the widths and heights a little bit cleverer now, because we've seen that these are the kind of numbers we want to work with. We want a height of 450 and a width of 900, and each of these bands we want to be 50 pixels wide. So what we'll do is we will, back here, we'll use a little trick in that we can use in this cascading style sheets. We can say calc. Now this is all in lowercase. We can say calculate 50 pixels multiplied by 18. And then so that's going to give us 50 times 18, which is 950. But it'd be useful to know that that's 18 times that 50 because we can use that number later on. Excuse me. And then we'll put in a height. And we'll do the same trick. We'll say calc 50 pixels, but we'll put in 9 because it's less high than it is wide. Then we'll say that we'll give this what's known as a border. So we'll type in border 1 pixel solid, and we'll make this black. So these are just white spaces between these values. That's a shorthand. You can see the border appearing there now. And then there are two more things we need to do in this playground to finish it off. We're going to use something called position relative. And that now means it's going to help us place these boxes inside of this black box here. So I've got a few more steps to do so you can start to see it coming together. So what we'll do on red is we're going to say that red is position absolute, and we'll do the same with orange. So we'll say that orange is position absolute as well. Right, so at this point we can see now that we've got a red box and an orange box, and you can probably see the way we're going with this is we're going to pile these different coloured ones on top of them to build up the effect of the rainbow. Okay, so let's show you what we can do here then. So in terms of positioning of these, let's just move things around a little bit so you can see a bit better, put a bit more space at the bottom. So the red one, we'd like it to go all the way over the full space that's available. You can see it's overflowing the box here. This black border indicates our playground, and that red has fallen outside of it. So what we'll do is we will change this. We'll add a last property in here of overflow hidden, and that now hides that. So even though it's bigger than that space, it's been hidden. Right, great. So we've got our red then. So let's calculate these values a little bit more sophisticated than we've done there. So we're going to say that the width for red, let's use our calc now. We'll say that it's 50 pixels multiplied by 18. That will give us our 900. So the numbers, why I didn't put 900 in there, you may be thinking is easier, but you'll see as we go on, it makes life a little bit easier just to do the calculation like that, because we'll be able to easily adjust the numbers without having to think about them too much. And our height, we'll use the same trick. We'll say that is calc, and that it's 50 pixels multiplied by 9. So that's covering the full space available. Now this is where it will start to pay off, because I can copy that down to here, and for these two we'll just reduce that to 16 and we'll reduce that to 8. You see that's clipped underneath it. Now it looks to be upside down. You'll see what, if I add another one in, you'll see what I mean. So if I copy what I've got there, so if we copy orange try again. So I'm going to copy orange and put it underneath. And let's say this one is yellow, and we change the colour to yellow, and we make that 14 and this 7. You can see them starting to kind of pile on top of each other, but the red is obviously upside down as you should extend this, so we need to just flip things around a little bit. And the way that we're going to do that is each one of these elements now we can position. Now, red is actually okay, it's the yellow and the orange we need to move down a little bit. So what I'll say with orange is I'll say that, can you move in from the left? So we're going to move it in from the left hand side so many pixels. And remember, each one of our bands was going to be 50 pixels, so we'll put 50 in. And we'll do the same with moving it from the top, so we'll say 50 pixels from the top. Okay, so that's orange now being moved down, so you see that's looking okay as regards the yellow. So let's do the same with yellow here, so we'll say left. Now this is where I can start using the maths again, because I can say calc 50 pixels times 2. And then we could say top calc 50 pixels times 2. And that's starting to look like a very kind of angular, but an angular rainbow. Right, so with one of these set up, that's yellow, the green, the blue, the indigo, the violet, will be fairly easy. Let's do the next one for you, but you can, if you are sussing out what we're doing here, please feel free to trundle ahead. Basically what we're going to do for the next one, for each one, is we've got green next, so put our angle brackets in there. It will do that for you automatically, but this is going to be background of colour, spelt wrong, of green, and then we're going to say that the width of this is a calculation of 50 pixels times by 12. I could have done 100 pixels times by 6, but we'll stick with the 50s as the unit. And then we'll say a height is a calc of 50 pixels times by 6. Okay, and we will then position it absolute, and there it is. And we just need to now move it from the left and the top. So in computing, the left value is the top left there, to the higher the value it moves across, the top, the higher the value, the further it moves down from the top. So what we're going to do is we'll say left calc 50 pixels times 3. You see, let's put that where we need it to be in terms of horizontal on the x-axis, and then we'll say top calc 50 pixels times 3. Again there, that will move it down to where it needs to go. Okay, great. So blue will be next. So I'm going to copy what I've got there, Control C, paste it underneath, and then we'll change this to blue. Make sure that you match the spelling correctly, which I didn't do there, and that you do match the case. So all of these are in lowercase. So the colour is blue. The width is 10. We're going down in 2 on the height and only 1, sorry, 2 on the width and 1 on the height. So make that 5 and that 4 and that 4. And there we go, that's moved into position nicely as well. couple more to go. I'll copy that one again, paste it underneath. So this is going to be indigo. So make that indigo, make that indigo. Remember, we're reducing that by 2. We're reducing that by 1, and we're increasing these by 1. So we had 10, 5, 4, 4. We've now got 8, 4, 5, 5. And in that one goes. And then the last one of the coloured ones is violet. So again, I'll just copy that in. So this one's violet. It's 6 times 50, and it's 3 times the height. Last one was 4, now to 3, and this will be 4 and 4. Oh, sorry, I'm going the wrong way. It needs to, see, it's positioned at the wrong height there and location, so that should be 6. I'm going up on that side, not down. There we go. So there is our initial kind of rainbow shape. Not looking very rainbowy, you're saying, because it's not got any curves. We'll add those in a second, but we need the white bit in the middle. So the white bit in the middle is just going to be a white block. It's going to use a similar kind of concept as we've used for all these coloured bands. So we need to say hash middle. We'll make its width. Now the width of this is going to be 50 pixels times by 4, and then the height is going to be this going down by 1, so that'll be a height of 2. We need to position it absolutely. Make sure you're spelling all of this correctly. And the background colour, put a dash in there of white. So he's placed it up there because we've not got the top and left position in there yet. That's our next 2 lines, so we'll say left, and we'll say calc 50 pixels times 7, and then top, see, it's moved it to the right position horizontally, and then calc 50 pixels times 7. There we go. So there's our white block in to give us our hollowed out rainbow. And let's put the curves in before we have a look at the animation. So adding the curves in, we can do, there is a feature in CSS, which is this language here, called border radius. We can use that to apply a curve. Now, rather than add the code into all of these, it's going to be the same, what I can do is I can apply a property that will affect all of them. So after the curly brace there at the top of the CSS, I'll stick a new line in, and we'll say that if you are in the playground, which is the space we're using to experiment with, and then this is a greater than sign, and then if you are a div within that, then we put the curly brace like so. Now this is, in CSS jargon, this is going to target all of these here, or all of these. We don't need to name them individually. And I'm going to say that their border radius is, now this can be set on 4 sides by putting one value in. You see, if I put in a value of 500 pixels, it looks kind of fun, but it's not really the effect that we want because it's applied a border to all sides. So what we nearly need to do is actually write 500 pixels again after a space, and then put 2 zeros in. What that does quickly is it puts a rounded corner on the top left, on the top right, but then it's going to leave the bottom 2 corners on 0, so they're not going to get a curve. You see, if I make that 0, you get that kind of effect. Okay, but what we wanted is that. Great, so there is our rainbow. So the next thing to do is to animate it. Okay, so we want to animate this. We've got the nice visual effect, but we want to animate it. So let's have a look at animation techniques quickly. So we're going to use this address here to look at a different CodePen. So in your browser, I would stick this in a new tab so that you can see the effect. So take that address there. I'll give you a second to copy that down, or you can pause the video here. And this address we're going to use inside of here. So put it into a new browser tab. So you click on plus in Firefox, or you're in Chrome, you click on the plus. And here we go, we've got a little example to get us into animations without having to dig too far into them. Right, so got a similar kind of setup to what we've been building with the rainbow. We've got a little playground space here, just a convenient name to box some space in, and we've got a div of ID ball that we're going to create in there in a second. So we'll do that. We'll say hash ball, and we'll give it a background colour of red, and let's give it a width of say 50 pixels and a height of 50 pixels. Okay, right, so there's our ball, although it's going to become we'll make it actually look like a proper ball in a second when we animate it. So how we animate is we use something called keyframes. Now, if you want to investigate further, do have a look on a good website called W3 Schools. It talks you through these techniques, because I'm going to use this technique here called CSS animation, and it uses something called keyframes, which we'll set up. So the way that the keyframes work is that you create them by saying at keyframes, and then you give it a name. So I'll call it my move. So don't use any white space, just keep all that as one name. In programming we call that camel casing, and then we put a curly brace in, and then we can put some animation values in. So the way this works, an animation is changing of values over time basically. So if we put in 0%, we could say at 0% we would want it to be left 0 pixels, and then underneath we could add in another line and say at 100% we would like it to be curly brace left, how wide is this? It is 400 wide, so let's say 350. So that creates our keyframes, our animation. So we've got a point here and a point over there. So we've set up our keyframes. So up here now, we'll say that up here, position absolute, to allow it to move to use these left values, and then we'll say animation name. What name did we give it? We called it my move. and that should hopefully be enough to see it start moving. Perhaps we need to give it a duration as well. Let's do that. Animation duration, and we'll say that it's going to take 4 seconds. There we go. Okay, so that's now moving across. It jumps back, you see at the end there. There's various other commands we can use. So we can say animation delay. We can have it delayed 2 seconds before it did it. So 1, 2, and then it should start. We can have it going on infinitely, so you can say animation iteration count infinite, so we'll just keep going forever now. That jumps back, which is a bit annoying, but that's because we've told it just go one way and then repeat. So you can put different steps in here. So we could say at 50% it's over at the left, but then at 100% it's back at the beginning, so it's back to 0. And now with infinite in, it will just keep doing that infinitely without having the kind of jump effect. Okay, there are other animation properties which you can use. These will get us going for our rainbow effect. Let's say this was called ball. Let's make it a ball. We just saw with a rainbow, if you use border radius. Now I'll give it a radius value which is equivalent to the height. Should convert it into a ball for us. And then that's animating backwards and forwards. So what is it that we want to animate? Because with our rainbow, we don't want to be moving it left or top or anything like that. So what we're actually going to animate is something called the transform property. So let's show you that. We'll do that next. Okay, to transition or transform our rainbow now, we're just going to use this little CodePen here. So I'll give you a second to copy that one. Pause the video here if you like to put that into a new tab. And once you've copied that, that's this file here. And just wanted to show you how we can rotate things. So we've got our playground again, this is space here. And we've got a box inside of it. So let's give it a width. Let's give it a height. Let's give it a background colour. Right, so there's our box. A bit on the big side, let's make it a bit smaller. Right, and what we're going to do is we can, in here, we can use something called transform. And we could say rotate. And I know what this takes is a value in degrees. So if I put in 45 deg, so we put deg in for degrees, you can see how it's rotated that 45 degrees. So this value we can actually animate if we choose to, in the same way that you animated with those keyframes there. You see it's kind of disappeared off the edges there. We could make it hide as it did that, and we did that in our rainbow already because we made our rainbow overflow hidden. So back in this one, if I said the playground was overflow hidden, you see it does cut those off as if they go behind the background. And that's what we're going to do. Each of those rainbow stripes is going to get rotated and be hidden underneath. So let's add the little rotation animation in here so you can see this. So we'd say at keyframes my rotate, and then we could say at 0% that it is at transform rotate 0 deg, and a new line underneath. So we made that match the initial placement as well. And then at 100%, we could say it will be at transform rotate 45 deg. And then we need to tie these two together. So we'll say animation name my rotate and animation duration, let's say 4 seconds, 4s. There we go. Okay, and you could use the same tricks like making it infinite, etc., as you saw in the other example. Right, so what we'll do next is we'll take these concepts and apply them to our rainbow. So let's hop back to our rainbow. So far we've just drawn it. We now want to animate it. So what we'll need to do is we'll create some keyframes right down the bottom. Create some keyframes. So I'll say at keyframes my rotate. So I'm just calling it my rotate so I know that I created it. I'll put the curly brace in. And we'll have a 0%. And we'll say transform rotate. Now we're going to start at minus 180 degrees because these are going to be spun underneath. And at 100%, when they're finished, they will be at form of 0. So they're going to end up where they would normally be sitting if we hadn't rotated them. Right, so I'm going to have to apply that to all of these, which is fine. We can do that. So what we'll do, we'll just go through we'll start with the red one, I think. So on red, so between these curly braces here, and we can now say animation name my rotate, animation duration, what value should we use? Let's say 4 seconds. Okay, so we can see it's doing something which is not quite behaving as you would expect. So why is that? Almost tempted myself there, but don't refresh because you will lose all the information you put in there if you do that. So when you want to change this, the issue is the center where it rotates around. So we have to set the center to be slightly different. It's what's known as the transform origin. So on red, we are going to say transform origin, and we'll set it to be, this is where we'll use calc again, It'll make life easier as we roll this code down to the other elements within the rainbow. So we'll say calc 50 pixels times 9. That's 450. Space calc 50 pixels times 9. So that's 450 again. So 450, 450 is going to place the center of rotation here. 450 in, 450 down. So the red is going to rotate around that as the center point, as the axis. Right, so let's change the duration so we can see it do that. And there's our red working. Great. Just before we do the other stripes, let's just look at what's happening with this rotation effect. And actually, because what we're going to do is down here, we are setting it from minus 180 to 0. So let's initially place all of the stripes at that value. So we'll target this one here. Remember that we use this to put the rounded effect on each of the blocks that make up the rainbow. So on here we'll say transform rotate, and we'll set them all initially to be 180 deg, minus 180 deg, and you'll see how they all disappear. Now as we put the, or sort of rotate I should say, now as we put the transformation points in, they will all disappear underneath. And there's an overflow hidden, we'll hide them as well. So let's do that with the next one. So that goes in transform rotate on all of the divs initially. So next up we'll deal with orange. So remember, what you can do is you can basically use all of these, but we will be changing the transformation origin of each of these as we go down. So we'll add in the animation name for orange of my rotation. We'll say 3 seconds again, but we'll change that. You see, it doesn't quite look right. If you watch the orange with, put it back to 4 seconds so you can see it. The animation effect's not quite right because the transformation point is not correct. So we need to multiply that by 8 to move it to the correct position. And there's the two of them. You can see those two are now working fine. So we can roll these 3 lines out with different values for each of the stripes. So yellow, we'll make that 7. We can see yellow working there now. Green, we'll make that 6. See that working. Blue, next up will be 5. There we go, getting nearly there. And next is indigo. So that animation in my rotation, same duration, down to 4, aren't we, I think? Yeah. So there, and then the last one, violet, I'll make that 3. There we go, and you can see the white is still upside down. So we need to sort that one out. So we'll just set our hard code, a rotation value in on the middle. We'll say that its transform is actually to rotate to 0 deg. I'll move it back to its original position. There we go. Right, so we've now got initial sweep effect, but what we'd want it to do is to end and stay in position. So we need to tweak each of those animations. I'm afraid it's the same on each one, which means that we could actually apply it at this level here, because we could say animation for each of these. Sorry, animation, and then we want something called fill mode, which indicates when it'll end. So forwards is a setting which will mean that the animations will stop at the end. So they should all do their stuff and then stay at that end point, which is what we'd like. So we can apply that to all of them in the same way that we rotated all of them through here. Okay, now one final thing you'll notice on the one I originally showed you, it was a little bit more random in the way that they appeared, get that kind of effect, and we can do that just by adding different delay values in. So because we're going to use different values, we'll have to do this individually. So if we say that the animation delay for red is 7 seconds, that'll take 7 seconds to come in, so you see it coming behind everybody else. Take its time, there we go, and then we could repeat that and just drop the number down each time. So for orange, let's say animation delay of 6. For yellow, let's say animation delay of 5. And then what are we on here? Green, 4. Blue, 3. Indigo, 2. And then finally violet, 1. So what you should now have is the rainbow. Okay, so that's it. Hope you can have a play around with those values. That's the basic one to get going. If you want to learn more about this stuff, do have a look at W3 Schools, where you're talking about the animation effect there, timing functions. There's other things that you could do to play around with that and have an experiment. Okay, have fun. Thank you.